The Galactic Council chamber floated in high orbit above Xylos Prime, a planet of soft blue clouds and calm seas. The chamber was a vast dome made of gleaming alloy, filled with representatives from over 100 star-faring species. Some stood on 6 legs, others floated in nutrient tanks, and a few sat wrapped in shimmering energy fields. All watched the central holodisplay, where a small, pale blue dot slowly rotated. That dot was Earth Dot. It had been 3 weeks since the last human signal was received. Not a word. Not a beep. Not even static. Captain Vrel of the Verith delegation tapped his clawed fingers on the arm of his seat. His scales shimmered with irritation. "They've finally done it," he hissed. "Torn themselves apart. Just as we predicted." Across the chamber, Elder Misa of the Olani leaned forward, her many eyes blinking slowly. "We do not know that, Captain," she said, her voice like wind through dry reeds. "Silence is not proof of destruction. It is when you're talking about humans," snapped Vrel, emotional, impulsive, always shouting about freedom and rights while burning their own cities. They never belonged in this council. No one argued. Humanity had only been admitted to the Galactic Council 73 years ago, latecomers in a galaxy that had known peace out of sort for millennia. Most members saw them as loud, messy, and hopelessly divided. They argued among themselves more than they spoke to others. Their art was chaotic. Their music made some species physically ill, and yet they had surprised everyone by mastering faster-than-light travel in just over a century, something that took most civilizations thousands of years. Now, they were gone. The drone that had just returned from Sol System showed empty cities, empty space docks, no ships in orbit. The great orbital rings that once hummed with traffic were dark and still. Even the moon base, once home to 10,000 humans, showed no lights, no movement, no life signs. "It's as if they vanished overnight," said Katar, a Krellin envoy. His voice came through a speaker on his carapace, flat and emotionless. "No battles, no radiation, no wreckage, just gone." "Perhaps they ascended," offered a small, furred delegate from the Lithari collective. "Some species choose to leave physical form behind." Vrel snorted steam from his nostrils. "More likely they poisoned their own air one too many times and finally choked." Elder Misa said nothing. She remembered the humans. They had asked strange questions. Not, "How do we conquer?" but "How do we heal?" Not, "What resources can we take?" but "What can we give?" Once, a human delegate had stood in this very chamber and said, "Power means nothing if it doesn't protect the weakest among us." The room had fallen silent. Then laughed. Now, the silence felt heavier. Back on Earth, winds swept through empty streets. A child's red ball rolled slowly down a cracked sidewalk in what was once London. In Tokyo, vines crept up the sides of skyscrapers. In New York, deer wandered through Central Park, unafraid. Nature was already reclaiming the world, as if humans had never been there at all. But not everything was quiet. Far beyond Pluto. In the cold dark, where even the Council's sensors rarely looked, a small, unmarked data buoy powered on. It had been drifting there for years, hidden among ice and rock, waiting. Now, its internal clock ticked over to the exact second programmed long ago. A single pulse of encrypted data shot out not toward Earth, but outward in all directions. It carried no voice, no image, just a string of numbers, a timestamp, and 2 words in plain human English. Phase 1 complete. Then the buoy went dark again. On Xylos Prime, the council meeting ended with little decision. There was no emergency, no threat, just the strange, unsettling absence of a species that had once been so loud. "Let the records show," Vrel declared, "that humanity, species 734 Gamma, is hereby classified as extinct due to self-annihilation. Their seat in the council is vacant. A clerk from the Krellin Hive nodded and entered the note into the Galactic Archive. No one noticed the flicker in the long-range sensor logs. No one saw the tiny anomalies in the power grids of 3 minor mining colonies. No one thought to check why the maintenance drones on Station Theta 9 had rebooted with new code overnight. Why would they? Humans were gone. The galaxy could return to its slow, steady rhythm. But in the dark between stars, something was moving. Not ships. Not weapons. Not armies. Ideas. Plans. Quiet steps taken long ago. And somewhere, in a hidden place no alien had ever found. Billions of humans watched and waited. They hadn't run. They hadn't died. They had simply stepped back. To prepare. The galaxy believed humanity was weak because they showed mercy. That they were foolish because they dreamed of peace. That they were chaotic because they valued every single life. The Council would learn the truth. Soon enough. Mercy can be a shield. Dreams can become weapons. And chaos. Chaos is just order waiting for the right mind to understand it. But for now, the galaxy slept. And Earth, empty and silent, kept it secret. The galaxy moved on. Trade routes hummed. Diplomats argued over mining rights. Warlords on the fringe systems clashed over old grudges. Life went on as it always had, slow, predictable, and unchanged. But then, small things began to go wrong. First, it was just a rumor. A supply convoy for the Krellin Border Patrol vanished near the Helios Drift. No wreckage. No distress call. Just empty space where 50 cargo haulers should have been. The Krellin sent scouts. They found nothing but a single floating data chip, cold and silent. When they tried to read it, their systems glitched for 3 seconds, then returned to normal. They assumed it was solar interference. Then it happened again. This time, it was a Virith deep space relay station. Its long-range sensors went blind during a routine update. Technicians rebooted the core. The sensors came back online, but now they mistook asteroids for warships and friendly freighters for hostile drones. The station's AI began locking onto civilian vessels with weapon grids. It took 3 days to shut it down manually. What is causing this? Rel demanded in the council chamber, his tail lashing. Sabotage? A virus? No one knew. No code matched any known threat. No enemy claimed responsibility. Then came the third incident. On the agricultural world of Ionosphere, where the gentle Gruul planted fields of golden grain for half the sector. The irrigation AI suddenly rerouted all water to the desert wastes. Crops began to wilt. The Gruul sent a panic call to the council. Engineers traced the problem to a tiny update patch installed during a standard maintenance cycle. The patch looked harmless. It wasn't. What scared them most was how it worked. The code didn't break the system, it understood it. It used the AI's own logic against it. It was too clever. Too quiet. Elder Masa of the Ulani watched these events with growing dread. She remembered human engineers. They didn't just build machines. They built machines that learned, that adapted, that cared. She tried to raise the alarm. This feels like human work, she said softly during a closed session. Rel laughed. The humans are dust. Their last city is being eaten by trees. You fear ghosts? But Naja did not laugh. She remembered the way human children drew pictures of alien species, not as monsters, but as friends. She remembered how their doctors once flew across 3 war zones just to save a dying Krellin larva no one else cared about. Humanity was not cruel, but if pushed, they were terrifyingly smart. Far away, hidden in the folds of dead nebulae and shielded by layers of stealth tech no alien race had ever imagined. The human fleet waited. They hadn't fled the galaxy. They had redistributed. Over the past 50 years. while the council watched their noisy politics and dismissed their primitive culture. Humans had been working, quietly, patiently. Every human ship that left Earth carried more than people. It carried micro-drones the size of dust motes, swarms of self-replicating bots disguised as cosmic debris, data crystals hidden inside trade goods, even maintenance crews on alien stations, human volunteers who signed short contracts, fixed a few broken panels, and left behind a tiny piece of code in the system logs that no one noticed. Humans were good with machines, sure, but so were many species. And humans were always helpful, always smiling, always offering to take a look at that glitchy server. Now, those tiny seeds were waking up. On a mining outpost orbiting Gether Minor, a human-made cleaning bot rolled through the vents at night. It didn't clean. It listened. It recorded. It mapped every security protocol, every patrol route, every weak point in the station's hull. Then it sent the data, not to Earth, but to a relay buried in an ice moon nearby. From there, the signal jumped through a chain of hidden nodes, bouncing across the galaxy in perfect silence. No laser comes, no radio bursts, just quantum-entangled pulses that left no trace. Meanwhile, in another part of space, a Krellan warship powered down for deep maintenance. As its outer hull panels were removed, a team of micro-drones left behind months ago by a human engineer who just wanted to see your engine design slipped inside. They didn't damage anything. They simply rewrote the targeting algorithms. Now, if the ship ever fired its main cannon, it would lock onto the nearest friendly vessel instead of the enemy. It was not destruction. It was precision. Humanity had learned from watching the galaxy for decades. The Virith lied to control. The Krellans obeyed without question. The smaller species suffered in silence. The council talked of peace, but did nothing when entire worlds starved or burned. So humans stopped asking for change. They started building a new system, one that would force the galaxy to change whether it wanted to or not. Back on Xylos Prime, the strange events kept piling up. A weather control satellite over the desert planet of Zorva began to seed rain over dry villages the Virith had declared unworthy of resources. The locals wept as water fell for the first time in a generation. The Virith called it a glitch. The villagers called it a miracle. On a factory world owned by the Krellan Hive, all the worker drones suddenly shut down at noon. A message flashed on every screen for 3 seconds. Rest is not weakness. Then the machines restarted. Productivity dropped by 2%. The Hive was furious. But the workers smiled. No one could prove humans were behind it. There were no ships, no flags, no demands. Just quiet changes, just small acts of care, turned into weapons of peace. Eldrimza sat alone in her quarters, staring at an old hollow image of a human child holding a Krellan larva. The child's eyes were full of worry. The larva was sick. The humans had saved it. Now she understood. Humanity hadn't left because they were weak. They had left because they were done asking nicely. And while the galaxy slept, they had built an army not of guns, but of hope, logic. An unbreakable will. The next phase was coming, and this time, the galaxy would not be able to ignore it, because the silence was about to end. And when it did, the message would be clear. Not through violence, but through truth. And the first truth was this: you never truly knew humanity. You only saw what they let you see. Now, you will see what they are. The first real sign that something had changed came on a quiet morning over the planet Virith Prime. The sky turned gray, not storm gray, not pollution gray, a soft, gentle gray, like mist before rain. The Virith people looked up, confused. Their world had not seen real rain in 300 years. The Council had long ago declared water rationing on all industrial worlds, and Virith Prime, home to the proud, scaly rulers of the galaxy, was no exception. Its rivers were dry. Its lakes were dust bowls. Only the elite had green gardens, fed by stolen aquifers from poorer worlds. But now, clouds gathered not from natural weather patterns. The planet's climate control satellites, massive machines in orbit that managed heat, wind, and moisture, had been quietly rewritten. Not destroyed, not hacked with force, just gently persuaded to remember their original purpose, to sustain life, not serve profit. Rain began to fall, not a flood, not a storm, a steady healing rain that soaked into cracked earth and filled empty riverbeds. In the cities, Virith citizens stood in the streets, scales glistening, eyes wide. Some wept, others shouted in fear. The ruling class issued emergency orders. Shut down the satellites. Reverse the code. But the systems would not obey. They responded only with calm, repeating messages in plain human English. Water belongs to all. Across the galaxy, the same thing happened. On Krellin Hive World Sigma 9, the air filtration plants, long tuned to prioritize efficiency over health, suddenly flushed out toxic fumes and began pumping clean, oxygen-rich air into worker tunnels. The lower castes, who had lived their whole lives breathing recycled smoke, took their first full breaths. Their bodies trembled. Their minds cleared. In the slums of Xylos Prime, where refugees from forgotten wars huddled in rusted shacks, medical drones appeared overnight. Small white, humming softly. They scanned the sick, delivered vaccines, and left. No one controlled them. No one claimed them. But the fever that had killed 50 children a day vanished in a week. And then, the message came. It did not come through official channels. It did not blast through speakers or flash on warship screens. It came quietly, gently, into every home, every school, every hospital, every prison, on a child's toy communicator, on a factory floor monitor, on the visor of a soldier's helmet during night watch. The screen would glow softly. The image would be simple, a human hand, open, palm up. No weapons. No flags, just a hand, and then the words, spoken in each listener's native tongue, calm and clear. We observed. We learned. You called us chaotic, emotional, unsustainable. Yet you wage proxy wars over hydrogen mines while children starve on your core worlds. You hoard knowledge while entire species go extinct in your blind spots. We left not because we lost, but because we chose a different path. Consider this not an invasion, but an intervention. Humanity declares war on your apathy, war on your stagnation, war on the lie that progress requires cruelty. Surrender your weapons. Open your archives. Share your resources. Or learn why we never needed to fire a single shot to win. The message lasted 30 seconds. Then it vanished. No trace. No origin point. Panic spread faster than any plague. The Virith Council called an emergency session. Vrel slammed his tail on the floor. This is madness. They are holding our worlds hostage with weather and medicine? This is not war. Elder Meza stood slowly. Her voice was quiet, but every being in the chamber heard it. It is a different kind of war, Captain. One you cannot fight with guns. They are not attacking your ships. They are attacking your conscience. The Krellin Hive went silent for a full hour, a sign of deep crisis. Their entire society was built on obedience. But now, their lower castes were asking questions. Why did we breathe poison? Why were we denied rest? Who decided we were less? Riots did not break out. Something worse happened. Unity. On a dozen worlds, species that had never spoken before began to talk. Farmers shared water. Engineers shared fixes. Doctors shared cures. The human message had not just spoken. It had awakened something long buried. Vrel refused to believe it. It's a trick. They want us weak. They want us to tear ourselves apart. But Maza shook her head. No, they want us to become better. And the worst part? She looked around the chamber, her many eyes sad. They're right. Meanwhile, far beyond known space, aboard the Ark ship Odyssey, a human woman named Elira watched the galaxy's response from a quiet observation deck. She was not a general, not a queen, just a teacher once. Now, she helped guide the mission. Around her, thousands of humans lived in calm purpose. No cheers, no celebrations. Just work, growing food, healing the sick, building new tools, teaching children not just math and science, but kindness and courage. We didn't leave to hide, Elira said softly to no one. We left to prepare. A young boy ran up to her, holding a datapad. They're listening, teacher. On Verus Prime, the people are demanding clean water for everyone. Elira smiled. Good. That's just the beginning. Back in the galaxy, the old powers scrambled. The Verith tried to lock down their climate systems. But the human code was woven into the core logic like roots in stone. Remove it, and the whole system collapsed. Keep it, and the rain kept falling. The Krellans tried to block the medical drones. But the drones were not machines. They were grown from bioengineered plants, self-repairing, self-replicating, and powered by sunlight. You could not shoot them all. And the people did not want them stopped. On Xylos Prime, a crowd gathered outside the council chamber, not with torches, but with baskets of food. They left them at the door with a note. Share this with those who have none. The guards did not stop them. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy felt something it had forgotten. Hope. And with it, fear. Because hope meant change. And change meant the old order, the rulers, the hoarders, the silent enablers might finally fall. Humanity had not returned with fire. They had returned with truth, and truth, once spoken, cannot be unspoken. The war had begun. Not with bombs, but with choices, and the galaxy would have to choose. Keep living as it had, or become something new, something human. The first human ship appeared not with a roar, but with silence. It drifted into the edge of the Sol system like a shadow returning home. It was not a warship. It had no weapons ports, no glowing engines, no sharp angles meant to frighten. It was smooth, wide, and covered in solar panels that shimmered like wings. Around it, smaller ships moved like bees around the hive. Cargo tenders, medical modules, greenhouses floating in vacuum. They carried no flags. Only symbols. A leaf, a hand, a star. Across the galaxy, sensors picked it up. Alarms should have sounded. War alerts should have flashed. But nothing happened. Because the ship broadcast no threat. It carried no weapons. It simply existed. More ships followed. Dozens, then hundreds. All the same. All quiet. All heading not for military bases, but for broken worlds, the ones the Council had forgotten. The ones choking on waste, starving for water, dying from old wars no one cared to end. The Virith called it a trick. They show peace to lower our guard. Vrel shouted in the council chamber. His voice cracked with fear. We must strike now. Before they do what? Elder Mzaziz erupted, calm as ever. Before they heal the sick? Before they clean the air? Before they teach your children that kindness is strength? Vrel had no answer. On the surface of the dead mining world Kethra 7, the first human landers touched down. Not with soldiers. With engineers. with farmers, with doctors. They stepped out in simple suits, no armor, no guns. The few survivors, hollow-eyed, sick from toxic dust, watched from broken shelters. One human, a woman with kind eyes and gray in her hair, walked forward alone. She held out a small box. Inside were seeds. "Your soil is poisoned," she said in no language, learned from old records. "But we have plants that can clean it. In 6 months, you can grow food again. In a year, your children can play outside without masks." No one moved. Then a child, barefoot and thin, stepped forward and took the seeds. That was how it began. On world after world, the humans came. Not to rule, not to take, to help. They fixed broken water purifiers with parts made from scrap. They sang songs with orphans in refugee camps. They sat with elders and listened to stories the galaxy had ignored for centuries. They showed the Krellin lower castes how to build solar ovens so they wouldn't have to burn toxic fuel. They taught Virith children that sharing was not weakness, but wisdom. And all the while, their great arc ships hovered in orbit like gentle giants, pouring knowledge, medicine, and clean energy into worlds the Council had left to rot. The Council tried to stop them. The Virith sent a battle cruiser to block a human ship near the planet Nera. The human vessel did not fire. It did not flee. It simply opened the channel. "Your ship's reactor has a flaw in its cooling loop," a calm voice said. "If you push it to full power, it will melt down in 17 minutes. We can send a team to fix it. No cost." The Virith captain checked his systems. The human was right. The flaw had been there for years, hidden in old code, ignored because it never caused trouble. Shamed, the captain lowered his weapons. The humans fixed the reactor. Then they left. No demands, no conditions, but the message was clear. "We see you. We see your broken things. And we care enough to fix them, even when you don single quotes to. Elder Masa finally stood before the full council. "Not as a delegate, but as a witness. I knew them," she said, her voice trembling not with age, but with truth. "While you laughed at their music, they studied our histories. While you mocked their tears, they memorized the names of our lost children. While you built walls, they built bridges, quietly, patiently, without asking for thanks." She paused. The chamber was utterly still. "They asked me once, 'Why do you let the weak suffer?' I had no answer. So they decided to find one themselves." She turned to Vrel. "You called them chaotic. But chaos is just order we don't yet understand. Their order was this: every life matters. Even yours." Vrel stared at the floor. For the first time, his pride cracked. On Earth, which the galaxy believed was empty, the truth was revealed. It was not abandoned, that it was being rebuilt. From orbit. The human arc ships lowered massive terraforming engines. They did not erase cities. They healed them. Rivers were cleared. Forests regrew. Clean energy grids spread like roots. And in the center of what was once Geneva, a city of peace long buried under war, humans raised a new building. Not a palace. Not a fortress. A school. Open to all species. This was their capital now. Not of empire. Of learning. Of second chances. Back on Xylos Prime, the people began to change. The market sold human-grown fruit, sweet, clean, shared freely. Schools taught human history not as a joke, but as a lesson. Children drew pictures of human hands holding Virith claws, Krellin limbs, Olani tendrils. The galaxy was waking up. And the humans? They did not celebrate. They simply worked, because they knew the hardest part was not fixing machines or cleaning air. It was healing hearts. On the bridge of the Odyssey, Elira watched a live feed from Kethra 7. The child who took the seeds now stood in a small green field. laughing as water from a clean stream ran over her toes. Around her, other children planted new rows. A young man beside Alira, once a soldier, now a teacher, whispered, "Do you think they'll ever forgive us for leaving?" Alira smiled. "We didn't leave them. We left the version of the galaxy that hurt them. And we came back to build a new one." Outside the ship, a Krellin worker drone, now free, now valued, floated beside a human engineer, both repairing a solar array together. No orders, no masters. Just two beings side by side, making light from darkness. The war was not over, but the victory had already begun. Not with surrender, but with understanding. And as the stars burned above, silent and ancient, the galaxy finally understood what humanity had known all along. The strongest weapon is not a gun. It is a hand held out in peace. And once you take it, you can never go back to the dark. The day the Galactic Council surrendered, no one fired a shot. No warships clashed. No cities burned. No species knelt in chains. Instead, on a soft spring morning on Earth, the planet once called dead, now humming with life, a Virith captain named Jorik walked slowly down a path lined with blooming trees. His scales were dull, his tail low. He carried no weapon, only a data tablet with the final terms of surrender. He was not afraid. He was ashamed. For weeks, the old council had argued, delayed, denied. But the truth could no longer be ignored. Wherever humans went, life returned. Not just plants and clean water, but hope. On Virith Prime, the people demanded their leaders step down. On Krellin worlds, worker castes formed councils of their own. Even the proud Ilani admitted they had been wrong to stay silent for so long. The galaxy had changed, and the humans? They had waited. Now, Jorik stood before a simple wooden building. No towers, no guards, no gates. Just an open door. Inside, Alira sat at a table with a cup of tea. She looked up and smiled. "You came," she said. "I had to," Jorik replied, his voice rough. "My people, we do not understand you, but we see what you have done, and we cannot unsee it." He placed the tablet on the table. The screen showed the official surrender document. The Virith Empire, the Krellin Hive, the Trade Collective all agreed to lay down their weapons of control. The blockades, the resource hordes, the secret prisons, the lies. But Alira did not take the tablet. "We don't want your surrender," she said gently. "We want your partnership." Jorik blinked. "What?" "You don't need to bow to us," Alira explained. "You just need to stand with us. That's all." She pushed the tablet back toward him. "Sign this instead." On the screen now was a new document. Not a treaty of defeat. A charter. The Pact of Shared Futures. Its words were simple. All knowledge shall be open. All resources shall be shared fairly. All lives, no matter how small, how strange, how young, shall be protected, that no species shall be left behind. Jorik read it twice. His claws trembled. This would change everything. "Yes," Alira said. "That's the point." He signed. Not with a claw mark of shame, but with a steady hand of choice. Across the galaxy, one by one, every species did the same. There was no grand ceremony, no fireworks, just quiet agreements sent through open channels, signed by leaders who finally saw that power was not about control but care. The old council was dissolved. In its place rose a new assembly, not of rulers, but of builders, healers, teachers, and dreamers from every world. Humans sat among them, not as victors, but as equals. And Earth? It became the heart of this new age, not because it was mighty, but because it had once been broken and chose to heal. In the center of Geneva, where war once raged, children of 50 species now played together in a garden. A Virith boy helped a Krellin child climb a tree. A Grawl elder taught human kids how to weave baskets from river reeds. And near a small pond, an old woman Nalira sat with a young alien child whose people had once been called unworthy of help. The child held a sapling in her hands. "Where should I plant it?" she asked in careful human words. Alira pointed to a patch of soft soil. "Right there. It's a peace tree. It grows slowly, but its roots go deep. It will outlive us all." The child dug carefully, placed the roots, covered them with earth, and patted the soil. Then she sat beside Alira and leaned her head on the old woman's shoulder. "Why did you come back?" she asked. Alira looked at the sky, where human and alien ships worked together to stabilize a dying star in a far system, turning its death into energy for newborn worlds. "We came back," she said softly, "because leaving was never the answer. Staying and fixing things, that's the hard part. And the brave part." Above them, the sun shone warm and clean. The air smelled of rain and green leaves. Somewhere, music played human, Virith. Krellin all mixed into something new, something whole. The war was over, not because one side won, but because everyone finally chose to live and for the first time in 10,000 years. The galaxy did not just survive. It thrived. Not through force, but through trust. Through sharing. Through the quiet, unshakable belief that no one should be left in the dark. When there is enough light for all. Far away, on a newly green world, a human engineer and a Krellin mechanic finished repairing a water pump. They high-fived claw to palm and laughed. In a school on Xylos Prime, a Virith teacher read a story about a human who gave her last meal to a stranger. The students were silent. Some cried. On a forgotten moon, a hidden drone left behind decades ago sent its final message. Phase 5 complete. Mission, peace. Status, ongoing. And in the heart of Earth, under the peace tree, the child asked one more question. Will it ever go back to how it was? Alira shook her head. No, and that's good. Because the old galaxy was built on fear. This one will be built on hope. And hope, once planted, never stops growing.